Imagine a world where every single word you speak gets filtered, where every thought, even the ones you barely notice, is suspect, and where your memory of yesterday, well, that's constantly being rewritten. Deliberately. By the state? Look, this isn't just some dark fantasy for how to kill objective truth, and by extension, how to kill human freedom. It's a chillingly precise warning, really.
Yeah.
When absolute power goes completely unchecked, it doesn't just target political enemies. It tries to erase, the very fabric of human reality.
And that reality specifically, the mechanics of how it's destroyed, of George Orwell's, definitive 1949 work, 1984. We're looking at this book not just as literature, but as a political satire, a social commentary that feels frighteningly relevant today. It's a warning, isn't it? About totalitarianism, constant surveillance, and the complete manipulation of reality itself.
Right. We've synthesized a lot of analysis on this, looking at the intricate design of this nightmare world. We're trying to pull apart the exact methods, the psychological tools they use to crush both truth and, the individual mind. We'll be tracing the struggle of Winston Smith. He's just a low-ranking guy, really. And his fight isn't for power, it's just for the basic right to remember things correctly, to define his own life.
Yeah, and that core conflict drives everything in the book. It's that fundamental battle, truth versus absolute power. Think about it. A world where every thought is watched, every word is twisted, truth itself is basically illegal, and Winston just dares to try and keep his mind his own. But and this is crucial, as we'll see. In Orwell's world, rebellion doesn't end with some big revolution. It ends in this utterly haunting psychological surrender. So 1984 isn't just a story. It's a really vital warning. When truth dies, humanity isn't far behind.
And to really get this, we need to understand the context. When Orwell was writing this, he finished it in 1948. He'd seen firsthand the rise of, Stalinism and different kinds of fascism in Europe. Apparently, he first thought about calling it the last man in Europe. But flipping the digits of 48 to get 1984, that instantly made it feel like a warning about the near future, right? Not just history.
Oh, absolutely. That title change was everything. It wasn't just about the past anymore. It positioned the book as this urgent universal prediction, a model for how control could work anywhere, even in the West, supposedly free. It showed how ideology, when you pair it with technology, could grab hold of not just, land or people's bodies, but consciousness itself, the human mind.
So our mission for you, listening to this, is to really pull out the practical takeaways from Orwell's deep dive, these terrifyingly relevant lessons about totalitarian psychology, and to understand why protecting the freedom of your own mind, your ability to think independently, why that's the only real resistance that lasts. Okay, let's start by painting a picture of the world Winston Smith lives in, Oceania. It's one of these three giant superstates, always at war with one of the others, that keeps changing which one. And it's ruled by the party, personified by this mysterious figure, Big Brother. Life there, especially in Airstrip 1, what used to be England, is deliberately grim, kind of gray. Technologically backward in some ways, but incredibly advanced when it comes to surveillance.
Yeah, Oceania is designed purely for control. It's an architecture built for one thing, keeping the party in power. And the party's reach, it's absolute. It gets into every single aspect of life, right down to your physical responses and, crucially, your innermost thoughts. Think about the names of the ministries: truth, peace, love, and plenty. The irony is so blatant, so cynical, it immediately tells you everything about how this system works.
That irony is fascinating, isn't it? The Ministry of Truth creates lies and rewrites history. The Ministry of Peace runs the perpetual war. The Ministry of Plenty oversees starvation and rationing. And the Ministry of Love, that's where the torture and psychological breakdown happens.
Yeah.
What does that inversion tell us about the party's core belief?
It tells us they've seized control of reality itself. That's the foundation. They don't just manage resources or make policy. They control language. They control meaning. The core idea is clear. Absolute power doesn't just corrupt behavior. It corrupts the definition of reality and shapes identity itself.
And the symbol of all this, Big Brother, is just everywhere. His face on posters, watching. Our sources agree he's almost certainly not a real person, right?
Yeah.
More of a symbol.
Exactly. He is the symbol of the state's constant, all-seeing watchfulness. He's not a leader you interact with. He's a psychological tool, that pressure. The famous slogan, Big Brother is watching you, it's less a threat and more just. A statement of fact in Oceania. The whole idea of private life, a private sphere, it's just been completely abolished.
Which brings us straight to the tech that makes it possible.
Yeah.
The telescreen. Everyone knows the name, but our sources really highlight how devastating its dual function actually is.
Oh, the telescreen is genius in a terrifying way. Because it works both ways simultaneously. It broadcasts party propaganda into your home nonstop. News, music, announcements. But at the same time, it's watching and listening to you. And the crucial part, you can't turn it off, ever. It monitors your movements, your sounds, 24/7. You can dim the sound maybe, but it's always on. So even when you think you're alone, in your own apartment, you know every sigh, every mumbled word, every facial tick might be seen, might be heard, might be analyzed.
Wow. That sounds absolutely exhausting, just the mental load of that. How does that constant monitoring actually enforce compliance? It's not like someone's always actively watching every screen, surely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the clever part. It forces you into a state of perpetual performance. Since you never know for sure if you're being watched at any given moment, you have to act like you always are. You internalize the surveillance. This obviously stops any secret meetings or plotting. But more importantly, it makes thought crime a real danger. If you show the wrong expression, maybe boredom, maybe skepticism during the 2 minutes hate, that ritualized public hate session, that flicker on your face could be flagged. It could be evidence of thought crime. So the goal isn't just to catch you doing something wrong. The goal is to stop you from even thinking about doing something wrong.
The modern parallels there are just staggering.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to think about how information works today. When we trade autonomy for convenience, privacy is the first thing to go. The party understood that having total information, knowing where everyone is, what they're doing, maybe even how they're feeling it, just pulverizes any chance of rebellion.
Absolutely. The threat of being totally transparent is often more effective than physical violence. It destroys that private space. And as we see with Winston, that private space is where independent thought, where real emotional resistance needs to grow. The telescreen makes sure the individual is never, ever truly alone with their own thoughts. So, okay, we've got the basic structure, this cage of Oceania. Now let's dig into the two main psychological weapons the party uses to stop rebellion from even starting. Because they don't just want obedience, remember? They want to destroy the very idea of an objective reality outside the party. This is psychological warfare at its absolute deepest level.
Right. Let's start with Thule, this relentless, systematic manipulation, the rewriting of history.
This is really the heart of the party's whole operational philosophy. It's summed up in their slogan. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. And Winston Smith's job, his actual day job at the Ministry of Truth, is this rewriting. He spends his days literally altering old documents, newspaper articles, records, deleting people's names, unpersoning them, changing what Big Brother supposedly said in past speeches, switching who Oceania is currently at war with in the historical records.
But hang on, don't governments always kind of spin history or, tell lies? Propaganda isn't new. What makes the Ministry of Truth's work so uniquely terrifying, so effective at destroying truth itself?
That's the crucial difference. It's not just about telling a lie or putting a spin on things. It's about obliterating the original truth entirely, destroying the evidence that the lie even occurred. If something happened in the past that contradicts what the party says now, that past event is wiped. The documents are chucked down these memory holes, basically incinerators, and new documents are created, inserted into the files as if the new version was always true. The end result isn't just that people are confused about the truth, it's that the very concept of objective truth ceases to exist.
So facts aren't stubborn things at all. They're completely fluid. They depend entirely on what the party declares at, say, 11 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Exactly. And this constant need to adjust your understanding of reality, this enforced mental flexibility, leads directly to the concept of doublethink. Doublethink. It's the the requirement to hold two completely contradictory beliefs in your mind at the same time and accept both as true. For example, you know the party is infallible. You also know that Big Brother's speech last week predicted victory in Africa, but now they're saying they've always been at war with Eurasia. And you have to accept the revised speech, the one Winston just created, as the real original speech. And crucially, you have to do it without even noticing the contradiction or quickly forget that you notice.
That sounds psychologically impossible. How can a person's mind actually sustain that level of internal conflict?
Well, that's where the party's power really digs in. Doublethink isn't just lying to yourself. It's a conscious, deliberate act of controlling your own memory, controlling your own thought processes. And then this is the kicker, forgetting that you perform that act of self-control. It demands this profound mental effort to just stop thinking logically. The moment logic conflicts with the party line, the implication is huge. If the state controls the past, it controls your entire mental framework. Intellectual resistance becomes impossible because the basic facts you'd need to argue against the party. They literally don't exist anymore in the official record or even reliably in your own memory.
Wow. So if you don't have any external proof, no private diary like Winston tries to keep, no reliable memory, and you try to say, but I remember it differently,
Mm-hmm.
you're instantly crazy or subversive. The goal is to make the past as malleable, as changeable as the present moment.
Precisely. And if they control history and they control your internal sanity through doublethink, their final masterstroke is to control the very tools you use to think. Which brings us to Tool B Newspeak.
Ah, newspeak. This is one of Orwell's most chilling and maybe most misunderstood ideas. It's this artificial language, engineered with one single terrifying goal in mind: to make free thought, dissenting thought, literally impossible.
Right. The purpose isn't to make language clearer or more efficient, it's to make it smaller, more restrictive. The party understands a fundamental truth. Language shapes thought. If you can get rid of words, you can eventually get rid of the concepts those words represent. So the ultimate aim of Newspeak, as the book explains, is to narrow the range of thought, to make unorthodox ideas literally unthinkable by removing the words needed to formulate them.
Okay, can you give us some concrete examples? How does newspeak actually work to shrink thought?
Well, the committees working on the Newspeak dictionary systematically remove words that express nuance, complexity, or most importantly, rebellion. Take negative words, for instance. Instead of having a rich vocabulary for disapproval like bad, terrible, awful, vile, horrible, disgusting, Newspeak boils it all down to one word: ungood. If something is really, really bad, it's double plus and good.
Ah, okay. So by getting rid of synonyms, they get rid of the ability to make fine distinctions. If I can only call something ungood, I can't really explain why it's bad or how bad it is in any sophisticated way.
Exactly. And the party focuses intensely on words related to political and philosophical concepts. Words like freedom, democracy, equality, justice, individualism, even science in the sense of objective inquiry, these are all targeted for elimination. They either get replaced with some bland, party-approved term that strips them of their original meaning, or they're just deleted from the language altogether. The logic is brutal. If the word freedom doesn't exist anymore, how can you even form the concept of wanting freedom? How can you commit thought crime about freedom? It becomes impossible.
That's such a powerful argument for why language matters, why we have to defend the meaning of words. Orwell is saying that dumbing down our vocabulary, letting words become fuzzy or meaningless, is the first step towards limiting our ability to think critically, to feel deeply, to resist. Newspeak is like the ultimate mental cage. It ensures rebellion isn't just risky, it becomes linguistically impossible to even conceptualize.
It creates a population that literally cannot articulate complex dissent, even if they somehow felt the urge. The party doesn't need to persuade you that they're right, they just need to make it impossible for you to express why they might be wrong.
Okay, so this is the system. This comprehensive machine of control is what Winston Smith finds himself pushing back against. And he's not some hero figure, is he? He's just a low-level party member working inside the Ministry of Truth. An everyman, really. And his most dangerous quality is just this stubborn, basic desire for objective truth, for genuine human connection. His internal struggle perfectly captures the novel's core theme: truth versus power.
Yeah, Winston is like this tiny, fragile spark of humanity trying to survive under this immense weight of totalitarianism. And it's so important to grasp that his rebellion isn't about, storming the barricades or leading an uprising. He knows that's utterly futile. His rebellion is entirely internal, it's intellectual, it's emotional.
The things he does seem so small to us, maybe. But in Oceania, they're capital crimes.
Yeah.
Just keeping a diary, finding a secret corner to write down his real thoughts in old speak the language before new speak. That's a revolutionary act. He writes that key line: freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 makes 4. That's his entire manifesto right there.
Absolutely. And seeking out little scraps of evidence that the party lied, like that old photograph proving certain unpersons actually existed, that's a desperate search for solid ground, and maybe the most dangerous act of all, falling in love with Julia. Because the party actively tries to destroy genuine romantic and sexual connection. All loyalty, all emotional energy must be directed only towards Big Brother, having a private bond, a personal loyalty to another human being. That's treason.
So these small acts represent that fundamental human need for autonomy, don't they? The right to define your own reality, separate from what the state tells you. And that's a key insight, isn't it? Real resistance in this world isn't physical. It's intellectual. It takes this incredible courage just to question the reality being fed to you constantly. The freedom Winston craves starts, and maybe ends, with the simple right to think your own thoughts.
He just wants something solid to hold on to, something real that can't be rewritten or vaporized. That's why that little glass paperweight he buys with the piece of coral inside, is so symbolic for him. It represents a past that seems fixed, untouchable, a tiny, fragile bubble of objective reality.
And for daring to want that, for that simple act of mental independence, he eventually pays the price. The inevitable price. His search for truth, his affair with Julia, it all leads him straight into the hands of the thought police and into the Ministry of Love.
Right, the Ministry of Love, which, true to the party's twisted logic, is where they handle torture and psychological reprogramming. They don't just want to kill dissidents like Winston, that would make martyrs. No, they want to cure him. They want to reshape his mind, break down his individuality until he's sane, again, sane by the party's definition.
It's the ultimate dark paradox of this kind of control, isn't it? The state expends enormous effort not just to eliminate its enemies, but to force them to genuinely love their oppressor before they die. They don't want Winston to die defiantly believing 2 + 2 = 4. They need him to die sincerely, wholeheartedly believing that 2 + 2 = 5.
And the process is brutal and methodical. They systematically break down every pillar of his identity. His loyalty to Julia, his belief in objective history, even his faith in basic logic and mathematics. Through relentless torture, sleep deprivation, psychological manipulation, and endless ideological drilling by O'Brien, they demonstrate that nothing is real except power. The party's power. O'Brien tells him explicitly, reality exists only in the human mind, and the party controls the human mind. Therefore, the party controls reality. Full stop.
And this leads us to that infamous, horrifying climax of his re-education, Room 101.
Room 101. It's the final stage, the place where the party uses your own deepest, most primal fear against you. It contains, as O'Brien says, the worst thing in the world. And that thing is different for everyone. For Winston, it's rats, his ultimate phobia. And faced with that absolute unbearable terror, the cage of rats about to be strapped to his face, Winston finally breaks completely.
But the break isn't just him giving in physically. It's something deeper, isn't it? A betrayal.
That's the absolute core of it. In that moment of pure animal panic, Winston screams, "Do it to Julia, not me, or Julia." By betraying the one person he truly loved, the one person who represented his private loyalty, his last shred of independent humanity. He snaps that connection. His self is broken. His identity is gone. The state has successfully used his own fear to erase his capacity for love, for loyalty, for anything outside the party.
So the story doesn't end with any hope, any spark of resistance left. It ends in this devastating, quiet, haunting surrender.
Completely. Winston's individuality is just wiped clean. The final scene shows him sitting in the Chestnut Tree Cafe. He traces 2 + 2 or 5 in the dust on the table. He feels this wave of calm, almost bliss. He realizes he's won the victory over himself. He loves Big Brother. The party achieved its goal. Not by killing his body, but by successfully conquering and converting his mind, his internal reality. That final image of submission, achieved through fear and total mental reprogramming, that's the novel's most powerful, chilling message for us today.
Okay, we have to take that incredibly bleak lesson from fiction now and bring it back to our own lives. We need to shift from Oceania to the world we live in and connect these fictional tools of control to the pressures and realities you, the listener, might face. What practical warning does 1984 really force us to confront today?
Well, the novel isn't just a history lesson or a political science text. It gives us really profound mandates for how to think, how to act, especially now in this age of, information overload. The biggest takeaway, I think, directly from seeing the Ministry of Truth in action is the absolute need to constantly question authority and to critically examine the narratives we get from media, from leaders, regardless of where they come from on a political spectrum.
Okay, but question authority can sound a bit generic. How does Orwell's specific focus on history rewriting make that advice more urgent or actionable for us now?
Because we live in a digital age where information is incredibly fluid. Think about it. Online articles get updated silently. Old posts disappear. Search algorithms curate what you see. Digital memory isn't fixed. Orwell forces us to realize we almost have to become our own personal ministry of memory. We need to consciously try to preserve objective facts, verify information from multiple independent sources. We have to recognize that digital truth can shift or vanish just as easily as those documents tossed down the memory hole.
And as we talked about with Winston, the real defense against this isn't some technology, it's internal, right?
Absolutely. Independent thinking. That is the bedrock defense of freedom. If you give up your ability or your willingness to think rationally, to spot contradictions, to face uncomfortable facts just because they don't fit the narrative you like, you've already taken that first tiny step towards the kind of psychological surrender we see in the Ministry of Love. Our own independent mind is our greatest asset, and our biggest responsibility is to keep it sharp, keep it questioning.
Let's go back to Newspeak for a second. We obviously don't have an official committee deleting words from English. But we do see language changing constantly, words being used in new ways, sometimes maybe losing their meaning. How do we defend language today?
We have to be vigilant about defending the meaning of words. Language matters immensely. When important words, words like truth, evidence, freedom, fascism, justice, lose their clear, specific meanings, when they become just subjective labels or weapons to shut down debate rather than tools for understanding, we are genuinely on the path towards a new speak-like situation. You see it in the way euphemisms are used to soften harsh realities, or how political jargon can obscure rather than clarify, or how just slapping a label on someone is used to dismiss their argument entirely without engaging it. Defending precise language is defending our ability to think complex thoughts.
And thinking practically about autonomy, comparing the telescreen to our modern digital lives.
We have to consciously protect our privacy. The party's power was built on total surveillance. We need to recognize that all the passive data collection happening now, our clicks, our location, what we buy, what we like, that is a form of modern power, information power. So be really wary of trading your autonomy, your privacy, just for convenience. Ask yourself, are you inadvertently building the architecture of your own personalized telescreen with every app you install, every agree button you click without reading? Are you feeding data back to centralized, often unseen powers? That's how you create the conditions for an Oceania, bit by bit.
Ultimately, then, the duty that Winston fought for, and tragically failed to uphold in the end, was about preserving truth, even when it's unpopular.
Yes. That's the core moral challenge. Truth has to be defended, even when it's difficult, even when it makes you unpopular, even when it feels dangerous. The courage to stand your ground, maybe even alone, and say 2 + 2 = 4, when everyone around you, all the screens, all the powerful voices are screaming that it equals 5. That is the fundamental act of intellectual and human freedom. The lasting lesson of 1984 isn't just beware of big government. It's a call to action for each individual, a call to actively defend objective reality, to defend your own mind against all the forces external and internal that constantly try to erode it.
So our deep dive into 1984 today has really given us this powerful, incredibly detailed look at what happens when the state aims to conquer the mind, not just the body. It's a stark warning that external force is almost secondary to achieving that internal psychological conversion, breaking the spirit.
Right. And that brings us to the final thought, the provocative question we want to leave you with. Given that freedom really starts with the right to think your own thoughts, and given that the party's whole project was to destroy truth through rewriting the past, through fear, through chipping away at language and memory, you have to constantly ask yourself, in a world where the past is constantly being updated, digitally altered, spun into new narratives, how do you actively ensure that the reality you perceive right now is genuinely your own? How do you know it's not just a product curated for you? If the goal of ultimate power is to destroy all independent memory, all private loyalty, what is the single most important memory or belief or principle that you need to hold on to? Deep inside, what's the thing you will protect in your own private consciousness no matter what pressures you face, no matter what rewards are offered for giving it up? That internal decision, that commitment, that's the ultimate battleground, the battle for the individual mind, and it's a battle that never really ends.